Welcome back to Nationwide and welcome to Listowel in County Kerry, home to one of Ireland's most famous literary pubs. Its owner, John B. Keane, took inspiration from the characters in this very town. John died in 2002, but his wife and business partner Mary keeps the doors at John B.'s well and truly open. Mary Keane, you have been a publican here in Listowel for coming on 60 years. It's quite a long time. What changes and what memories come back to you?
Massive memories and not very many changes really, except in the olden days they all lived over their shops or at the back of their shops. They're all gone out now.
So you must be one of the last.
I'm one of the last, and my friend next door is there as well, and one or two, but all. And there's no children here. Somehow there's no children in the streets anymore. They're up and down with guns and shooting and all fun, you know, and that's gone. And I miss it. That's the change I notice the most.
Take me back to the early days of your life, Mary, because you're not native to Listowel.
No, I'm not a native, and I'm reminded of it very often, even after 60 years. They call me a blow-in, and no one is ever accepted unless they're born in the town, but I think that is true of a lot of towns in Ireland.
And did you have a happy childhood?
Happy enough, but we had no mother. Our mother died in childbirth at the age of 36 and left my father with 5 of us. It was sad enough start. It was, and it to this present day, I never knew her, and I could shed a tear after her. I spoke to other women in same circumstances as myself, and they said the same.
Tell me about meeting John B. Keane. Can you remember the first time you met him?
I can. I knew of him, I think, that I saw him dancing with someone at a dance. This fella came to me, and it was the ballroom in Listowel, big packed place, and I was sick of it, and it was too hot, and I was sitting down, and this fella came and, will you dance? I said, I wasn't going to dance at all, I wanted to stay in my chair because it would be gone. But he walked so long and so far. I said, okay. But then we got down to the dance floor. Wasn't the dance over, the music ended. I said, would you like a drink? I said, I would. And we went out to a little place and we had a bottle of orange each. There was the drink, like.
He walked with me to the car where my sister and my brother and friends waited. And they knew him well. I was very surprised. I thought I was going to surprise them, but they knew him well, and they knew him as a poet. And they knew that he worked in a chemist shop in Listowel. I didn't know any of this, so I said I would be back to Listowel. He invited me back again. I said I would. And then the next week I saw a poem in the local newspaper, and it mentioned the place I came from in the poem. And I said to myself, like, this is looking all right, like, maybe.
So you started going out together, and then John decides to go to England.
He headed for Northampton, and he got a job in the ball bearing factory. He'd write to me every day, and I get a letter every day.
Was he a good letter writer?
He was, lovely short little letter, and he came nearly every day.
And Mary, did you ever consider going to England with John yourself?
I did not, because young ladies didn't follow their boyfriends in those days, and it was considered a bit of a slur to be doing that, you know.
Does a marriage proposal occur around that time?
Yes, yeah, and that was the purpose of his going to England, to get a bit of money together and make a future for us.
The Listowel railway station. This place for me has many poignant and many happy memories, a mixture of the two. I remember there was a queue along here of nearly 50 to 60 people in the morning I was going. And in that queue were boys and girls who were going for the first time. Tearful eyes. The parents were too lonely to come into the station to see them off. That was the biggest hemorrhage, I would say, that Ireland ever knew, was that huge exodus around that time. And when I got on the train that day, I started to think of the whole situation, it's the tragedy underlying it, and I started that song, which I used later in the play, Many Young Men of 20, and I was beating at the window like this, you know. Many young men of 20 said goodbye all that long day, from break of dawn until the sun was high. Many young men of 20 said goodbye.
We wanted to have a house, and this place was available, and the price was right for us, and that's how we became publicans. It was an accident.
Yourself and John are running the pub here together. You have a very young family. What was it like with all of that going on, and John is also writing upstairs in the study?
It was no joke, but we were young and we had energy, and I think we didn't notice it. We didn't realise what we were going so hard, you know. It is only now, looking back, that I realised, how did we keep it going at all? But we did. I was always able to keep the house quiet enough for him to write. But I put a big lot of endeavour into it. And if the family wanted to run upstairs now and watch television for something, and if he was writing above, I wouldn't let him up. I'd say, come on, you'll have to stay here now, play here and do your business here.
I do most of my writing here in this room. I'm never stuck for ideas, actually, because all I have to do is look out the window and I can see the various quirks and foibles and the little peculiarities of the people that pass to and fro. I never deal with them sarcastically or harshly, but lovingly, I hope. It's so simple to do it because no two people are alike. The way they do it, everything they do is different. No two people park a car the same way.
John wrote many plays,
He did.
including The Field and Sive and The Trastitute and The Man from Clare. But the ones that stand out for you, what would be the standout plays for you?
Well, Sive changed our lives quite a bit. It made us financially better off as well. We didn't have to be watching out fair days. Was it raining or what way was it? Would we have trade? There was the amateurs really and truly took on.
Take no note of the man who has nothing to show for himself, who be full of raw mash and blather, who put wings on old cows for you but has no place to make a marriage bed for you. Take heed of a man with a piece of property. He'll stand over his promise. He'll keep the good word to you because he has the keeping of words.
Oh, the drowned lovely Sive.
They qualified for the All-Ireland in Athlone. We all went up, buses, everyone, we all got new coats and everything. And they came out on the stage and they said, Sive has won the All-Ireland Drama Festival. Woohoo! Everyone was crazy, crazy, crazy. We had great celebrations and it was lovely, it was lovely.
It took me 20 years to find out that I could write something marketable. Maybe 20 more years will pass before I can say to myself, you can write all right, you're okay, you're a writer. People will find it hard to understand this, but it isn't easy to become a writer. Nobody ever accepts a writer. He accepts himself.
John went on to write very significant plays in the Irish canon. We can think of The Field.
The next play he wrote was a play called Sharon's Grave, and it was a kind of a folk play. I still liked it, nearly great altogether. I'm very fond of that play, and it's done so much now. And then on comes Phyllis Ryan from Dublin, and she came down and she said, I'm from Dublin, she said, and John knew she was coming. I believe there's a script here, she said, Brendan Kennelly told me about it, and she said it's called The Field. Phyllis said, don't do that at all, because the horrible man in that play. And I said, he's the Bull McCabe and you won't like him. Darling, that's the play I came for. And when John came in anyway, didn't he give her the play, and she went off back to Dublin, and herself and Barry Casson put it on. And they made a great job of it altogether. They got Ray McAnally to play the lead, and he was a star. He was fantastic, and they had a great success.
This is the poster for the film version of The Field, and I always got the sense that John B didn't really fancy the film.
Their version of it was much different from the stage version, and it was a little scene at the end where all the cattle were thrown off the cliff that threw him off a bit. But apart from that, he said, well, plays are different from films, and that's it.
Would you say you ever ended up in a play yourself? Have you recognised yourself?
There was a little scene there in the field where the pub, and she was the wife of the auctioneer, and she was going to mass, and they were in jeopardy over the field, and the bishop was coming to tell him to admit to who killed this man. She had her hat on and her gloves, and she went to the till and took out a few bits of money out of it, put it into her pocket, going to mass, and she had the child by the hand, and that was me. That's the way I used to go to mass. I knew it straight away, but I never said it to him, for fear he put me into something else again.
Sadly, John is no longer with us. He died in 2002, and I'm sure you miss him.
I miss him a fright, I do. I miss him all the time, all the time. Sometimes I can't talk about it. Every time I pass him, I have to touch him. I just have to.
A golden mellow peace forever clings along the little street. There are so very many lasting things beyond the wall of strife in our beleaguered life. There are so many lovely songs to sing of God and his eternal love that rings, of simple people and of simple things.
Needless to say, there's always a wonderful welcome here in Listowel. Moll by John B. Keane opens on the 29th of May at the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin. And so we've come to the end of this evening's Nationwide. From lovely Listowel in County Kerry, good evening.